It is rare for me to cry while watching a film, but my God almighty, Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, it got me. And that was the last thing I was expecting going into that film. I mean, I'll be real. The fact that I even cared to watch this movie to begin with was a bit of a surprise to me. I never cared for Puss in Boots. I watched the first film from years ago, but I'm like, it's just a spinoff of Shrek. And at that point in the Shrek franchise, I was kind of like disengaged from it. I saw it as just a bunch of sequels being churned out. I was turned off, especially for Puss in Boots. I just didn't care. And then the sequel was announced like 7 or 8 years ago that it was going to go into production. I guess something happened and it was delayed. I couldn't only imagine what. But then the trailer for the sequel popped up last year and it looked very good. It was surprising. It was like, wait, hold on. This looks like it took inspiration from Spider-Verse. Look at how stylized it is. Look at the brighter colors. The textures aren't all fluff with the fur. It's a bit tighter to the body. There's something about it with the action, the movement. Just, it reeks of Spider-Verse. And I'm like, God damn, who would have thought that Spider-Verse would have such a severe impact on the animation industry to such a critical degree? I love it. I am here for it. It's almost like Spider-Verse smacked the faces of these big studios and said, you can do better. You can try something different. It doesn't have to be you trying to be Pixar House. You can try something else. You can have aesthetic and style. And even though this film is inspired by Spider-Verse, it felt like to me they took the best parts of Shrek and Puss in Boots and combined it with some really bold strokes, both writing-wise, thematically, with the characters, with the style, just across the board. I was appropriately hyped for the film, thinking, okay, maybe it might be good. And it was fantastic. Everything about it for the most part. I found myself like, were there any problems with this movie? Do I have any critiques? Which I'll get to here in a bit. But by and large, a Puss in Boots sequel ended up being my favorite animated to theaters release film of 2022. Possibly actually just favorite movie period. Sorry, Avatar 2. I think I preferred Puss in Boots 2 a bit more. I know what sequel I want. I said that this film made me cry, and I'll get to that here in a bit as well. But like as far as Puss in Boots goes as a character, for those who don't know, he was a side character that was introduced in Shrek 2. And he stuck around for the remainder of the franchise. Got his own movie, his own spinoff, as I said. And he's just a cat from Spain with his little boots, inspired by, I mean, Puss in Boots is an actual folklore character. So it's like a public domain. Not too much of a shock considering the Shrek expanded universe and all of what it entails. I mean, we got like, Goldilocks in this film and the Three Bears. I don't think Kitty Softpaws is, I think Kitty Softpaws might be original, along with his dog character. So you like see the creative ebb and flow of what's considered like public domain fairy tales and folklore, and seeing DreamWorks get creative with it, with their own spins, their own takes. I mean, that's why Shrek was a big deal to begin with. It took a cynical approach to fairy tales when like after coming off the cuff of the Disney Renaissance, where it was like oversaturated with a bunch of doe-eyed fairy tale stories and movies. It worked. But like, I never really caught too much cynicism in Puss in Boots, The Last Wish. I thought it was like comedic and fun. It had a go at fairy tales, like Jack Horner, little Jack Horner, the kid who puts his thumb in the pie. He was the antagonist of this film. And I'll try to avoid spoilers, by the way. Actually, heads up right now, spoiler alert. But you got him as the antagonist. And I'm like, I can't recall that guy, that fairy tale, the pie kid. Okay, it sounds kind of familiar. Did he jump over it? I guess he stuck his thumb in it, I think. Okay, I know about Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So like that was new, added to the Shrek expanded universe. But Jack Horner, I didn't know. Loved his design. I know a lot of folks did not. Jack Horner with a small little face, very expressive, massive torso, small little legs, big hands. I thought it looked so goofy. I was waiting for like a baby to walk out of like a trench coat being like, I'm actually child Jack Horner. And it's like, no, that's just an adult. That's just a very unapologetically evil adult antagonist who's trying to get the last wish because he wants to control all magic. So as far as the synopsis of the film goes, I should probably start with that. It starts with Puss. We discover that he's on his last life. He's had 8 lives so far that he's burned through, that he's died, and now he's on his last one. And now he's like, that's not a big deal. I don't care. I'm Puss in Boots. Legends never die. And then he meets a wolf character at a bar, and he thinks the wolf is like a bounty hunter trying to get Puss. And the wolf, who has like a very dark and imposing demeanor, kind of like this cool, suave, like, oh, I know I'm a badass. I know who I am. And I'm here for you, Puss. And Puss kind of gathering this idea of like, oh, I'm outmatched. This guy's kicking my butt. I'm losing. I actually might die here. And then like you see Puss abandon his life, the legend, and go into retirement in disgrace. While at retirement, quote unquote, which is like some little kiddie home with this older lady, he meets a small dog, a little chihuahua, who's in disguise as a cat. Learn this dog, this is a very optimistic dog, which I love that, because dogs are they're unrelentlessly optimistic and loving. They live for the day. Which is a great character to have in a film like this, and I'll explain here in a moment. But the dog is like, oh my gosh, I was abandoned by my family, and I live under the porch here at this house. We should be friends. And you see a Puss is like, I don't care. I just don't care. Goldilocks and the three bears then just show up as a bunch of like criminals. Like the three bears are all tough and like, with cockneyed accents, love. And then Goldilocks here with her stick and her plan to like, we're looking for Puss in Boots to help us steal from Jack Horner this prize we want, this last wish, the famous last wish, the star, the wishing star. If you get any wish that you want. And Puss hears this because he's hiding from the bears and Goldilocks, and he's like, I can get the wish. I can wish for 9 more lives. I don't have to be afraid. I can come out of retirement and the legend lives on. So Puss takes off to go get the map to the star from Jack Horner, runs into Kitty Softpaws, his old fling, who's also a badass in her own right. Kitty Softpaws, the dog, and then I said the dog, like, what's his name? He actually doesn't have a name. It's a running gag. I think they call him like Perrito or something like that throughout the film, which becomes his name, by the way, later on in the end. But the three of them set off to go get the star. Kitty Softpaws wants to get her own wish. Puss wants his own wish. The dog's just going along because he's having a good time. Jack Horner takes off with his own evil team of magical wielding ne'er-do-wells. And then you got Goldilocks and the three bears. And also one of my favorite side characters was Jiminy Cricket, that just shows up on Jack Horner's shoulder because he was captured and he was part of this infinite bag of magic, and he pops up and he's like, well, I'm Jimmy Stewart, and I'm here to be your conscience, and I know deep down inside, you're a good man, Jack Horner. And Jack's like, oh please, I'm evil. Like, just I don't give a shit, I'm evil. What's up? How long did it took you so long to figure this out? It's pretty great. Like Jack Horner, where Disney villains have sucked for the last decade or so, I think DreamWorks has at least tried to give us some entertaining villains, and I appreciate that. So as the film goes on, we realize that that wolf character who just keeps magically appearing throughout the movie pursuing Puss, that's Death, just straight up. He even says that I'm Death, not metaphorically. I'm straight up Death, and I'm here for you. You can run from me, but I will always find you. So a big, massive theme in this movie, the theme, is mortality, about how death is inevitable. You can run from it. You can think you have a legend that outlives it. And it's like, no, it's death. It is guaranteed for all of us, and it will find us someday. And I remember as a kid, I didn't think much of death. Like, I knew of death, but the finality never really hit me until I got older. And then it hit me one day where I'm like, oh, it's forever. I'm gone forever. And that was the introduction of my existential dread. And this film was so comforting in that regard. It was therapeutic. It was cathartic. There is a scene, this is the moment that got me to cry, where Puss, there's an entire fight with some of the characters, with some of the villains, with Jack or whatever, and Puss runs off out of fear because Death shows up, and he's like, has a panic attack, and he runs. And the dog character mentioned early on that he wants to be a therapy dog, and Puss retreats into this forest and gets lost, and he falls into a tree, and he's just breathing heavy and freaking out. And the dog like puts his head down on Puss's thigh, and Puss just pets, the dog, and he hears breathing. And it got me. It got me. Because I had a moment, I wasn't running from death, not yet. But I had a moment in the mid-2010s where I had a nightmarishly bad panic attack from accidental dread. And I felt like I couldn't get out of bed. I was like, I can't move. Nothing matters anyway. And my dog Lammy at the time hopped in the bed, and he walked up and just put his little head on my thigh, and just, I can see his little eyes like looking up at me, like almost like he was watching out for me, making sure I was okay. And oh man, the theater, I was glad I was the only one in there, because I bawled. I was like, and it was like, wow, this is a Puss in Boots sequel, and I'm weeping, openly weeping, and that's saying something. I know it's personal to me, So for others, it might not resonate with them. So me singing the praises of this film, some folks will go, oh, well, you're biased. bet your ass I'm biased. And I thought it was a very good movie. From the themes, from the characters and their arcs, as far as like Kitty's soft paws and realizing that she is trying to gain trust and a companionship through Puss. Puss had cold feet at the altar long ago with their marriage. Turns out she also took off, and that they, throughout the film, come close to each other, where she realizes, oh, Puss, you've changed. You're not some debonair adventurer anymore. You're actually looking for something, like you're trying to deal with a very complicated topic with your life's ending here. And also like, you're not acting as selfishly as you were. Like you're acting on your own accord with your wish, what you're trying to do, but it's not as bad as what it once was. And you see that in a twist of irony, Puss dies, metaphorically. His old life dies and he reemerges stronger from it. Because at the end, the last wish is a big old throwdown. They get to the site. Throughout the film, like Goldilocks is like, oh, I want this wish so I can get a real family. She's the B-plot. And the bears are hurt by that. They're like, oh, well, we thought you're your family, but we love you, so we'll help you get this wish. If I had any criticism, I'd say that the B-plot was like nothing mind-blowing. It was okay. It was serviceable. And I feel like that's good enough to support the A-plot, which was, of course, the main course of this film. That's where your eyes should be, glued to. So all the characters, especially Death, with how he's like confronting Puss time and time again. They have a showdown at the end. Because at the start of the film, they had a fight and Puss lost and dropped his sword. And Death is like, pick it up. Pick up your sword, pick it up, fight. And Puss runs. At the very end, the blade of Death falls to the ground, the scythe, a good touch, by the way, with the hood, so the Grim Reaper. And Puss says, pick it up. And I'm like, ooh, that's good. Because, like, you're going to lose someday to death, but you can at least go down fighting. And that was the point with Puss, that he's like, will face death, and I'm going to live my best life until then. And it's like, that's all a person could ever truly do. And done through a little anthro cat with his boots. So the message of this film, it was trying to say, because mortality and discussing about death is something kids can understand, but it's also for like anyone. We all can relate to this. We're all gonna face it someday, and it's on our minds constantly, I'd imagine, for most of us. So to have this film that discusses it in a very cathartic and creative and fun way through little anthro characters is beautiful. And it's a testament to the power of animation as a medium of storytelling, especially with these characters. And also all the fun along the way. It's great jokes, great levity, great pacing, wonderful music. The voice acting's top notch. I was thoroughly impressed. I'm like, this is a top-notch, possibly top 3 best DreamWorks films. Like Prince of Egypt, How to Train Your Dragon, Kung Fu Panda 2, I'd say. And then Puss in Boots is like right below there. It potentially might push up further for me because of like the bias I have because of my own personal story and how I can relate to this film. So overall, criticism-wise, Goldilocks, again, B-plot kind of weak, but that's forgivable by a long shot. I highly recommend this movie. It is outstanding. I applaud it. I hope DreamWorks keeps on with this course of being bold visually, with their writing, just across the board. You all might go the distance because Pixar's been struggling as of late, and I think DreamWorks could pass them up if they keep going in this direction. So for the folks who watched this film, who saw Puss in Boots' Last Wish, what'd you think about it? Tell me down below in the comments. I'll see you all next time.